And so now let's think about consequences and consequence strategies. So thinking about what do we do after behavior occurs, okay? So the goal of consequence strategies, first and foremost, is about increasing behaviors that we want to see more of, okay? So whether you call those desired behaviors or appropriate behaviors or however you want to term those, the kinds of behaviors you would like to see your child do more, we need to make sure that we're acknowledging those behaviors and rewarding them in some way, okay? So we are going to reinforce the behaviors that we're teaching a person to do, right? So for example, this child that I'm working on dressing with, there's lots and lots of reinforcement when he puts on his shirt by himself, or even when he attempts, because an attempt right now is really challenging for him. It's really difficult. And so if he even makes a good attempt, he gets lots of reinforcement for trying, okay? So lots and lots of reinforcement for doing what we want him to do more of. Anything that we want a person to engage in, we want to make sure that they're getting some reinforcement, some reward for that. And again, if you think, well, you know, we can't reward everybody for everything, I'll remind you again, you get paid for going to work, right? And we all like to say we love our jobs, and that may be the case, but unless you're independently wealthy and you really love your job, you wouldn't be going to your job unless you got paid. And pay is your reinforcement for going to work. We get reinforced for doing other things throughout the day as well. And it could be our reinforcement for cooking dinner is having dinner. It could be our reinforcement for cleaning our house is being able to kick back with a nice beverage and enjoy our clean house. There are different things that we might use to reinforce ourselves. Essentially, we get access to things as reinforcement. We get reinforcement. We want to make sure that we're reinforcing kids who are often putting an awful lot of work into trying to learn new things. We want to make sure that if we're teaching individuals what are called alternative behaviors or alternative replacement behaviors, where they're learning to do something instead of their problem behavior, like ask for a break instead of engage in problem behavior, sign cookie instead of screaming, those kinds of things, we want to make sure that we reinforce those as well, right? So all of those communication kinds of behaviors. If they ask for a cookie, they get a cookie. If they ask for attention, they get attention. If they ask for a break, they get a break. And initially, they're going to get it every single time. Now, over time, right, when they're more skillful, we'll look at changing how frequently, because you don't get a cookie every time you ask for one. And you may not get a break every time you ask for one. And you may not get attention immediately when you ask for it. You're told, I'll be there in a minute, right? But that's not where we start. I want a child to learn that the best way to get a cookie is to ask for one, or the best way to get attention is to ask for it. Then I'm going to make sure that every time they do that, I'm going to give it to them, okay? The other thing we want to make sure that we're doing is not reinforcing the problematic behaviors, okay? So rather than giving a cookie when the child screams, we're not going to do that anymore, right? We're just no longer going to deliver the payoff. And you're right, it's certainly easier said than done. But if you're doing all of the other things that we've talked about so far today, the chances of even engaging in problematic behavior are much smaller, right? So the likelihood that you have to worry about problem behavior is significantly reduced if we've addressed our setting events and our antecedents, and we're teaching new skills, and we're reinforcing all the good stuff. So lots of times, there are situations where I start to implement PBS plans, and we get little to no problematic behavior occurring at all, and we never actually have to worry about not reinforcing the problem behavior because it just doesn't happen, because we've done all of these other things to change the environment and encourage the kinds of behaviors we'd like to see, okay? It's really important that we plan out our consequence strategies very, very carefully, right? So that these are strategies that are built off of our functional behavior assessment. So I don't just walk into a situation with eyes closed and kind of say, here's your strategies, right? I really carefully look at the situation, develop a clear understanding of the situation, and then select the strategies that are appropriate for that situation. I always want to make sure, too, that when I'm looking at reinforcement, whatever it is that I might be using, that I'm also delivering some form of praise or positive social attention, because in the long run, that's often what people end up encountering in the natural world, is some sort of social attention, praise, positive statements. And children may not be reinforced by that right now. It's not very meaningful. But I want to deliver that at the same time that I deliver other kinds of reinforcers to help kids learn to like that kind of feedback as well, right? So that maybe we can reduce some of those other things over time. If you're working with a behavior consultant or a behavior analyst and you're thinking about consequence strategies, you want to work with your behavior consultant or analyst to come up with the best way to sort of accomplish your consequence strategies and the best way to provide some sort of praise. And there are some circumstances where you might not deliver a whole lot of praise. I've worked on occasion with kids who really don't like a lot of exuberant social attention, right? Where I have to really dial myself back a whole lot. It's very hard to do. But that kind of, wow, great job, is really aversive to them. And so if you do that, it's actually kind of punishing. And so there are circumstances where we might not do those kinds of things, where we might really dial down our social praise, right? And then sort of work on that over time. So it's really important that you individualize this, and a consultant or a behavior analyst that you're working with should be able to help you do that. In terms of this idea of not reinforcing the problem behavior, or in more technical terms, withholding the reinforcement, keeping the reinforcer back. So if you scream, I'm not going to give you the cookie. If you throw your toys, I'm not going to come and play with you. Those kinds of ideas. Again, that can be accomplished in lots of different ways. It can also go wrong in lots of different ways. So if you don't really understand how to do this well, it can come back and bite you. And so this is definitely something that if you're a parent, you should be working on with a consultant, with a behavior analyst who has experience in this and can not only help identify exactly what it is you should be doing, but can provide you with some good coaching on how to do this effectively to make sure that you don't make things worse, okay? If you're in a school situation, same thing. You should be working with either a school-based professional or someone who's working on the student's home-based team that can help you with this kind of thing, okay?